The GOP's 2024 presidential primary field is getting a bit more crowded. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis officially launched his 2024 campaign on Wednesday with more of a whimper than a bang. In a live, glitch-filled Twitter Spaces announcement that had a fraction of the live stream audience of a giraffe giving birth and an exploding watermelon, Ron DeSantis said he's running for president to, quote, lead our great American comeback. DeSantis' bid comes 2 days after South Carolina Senator Tim Scott announced his presidential run. And both candidates have a long way to go to catch up to former President Donald Trump. A recent Quinnipiac poll has Trump leading DeSantis by 31 points, 14 points higher compared to a similar poll from just 2 months ago. Joining me now for our Saturday Power political panel is former Florida Congressman and MSNBC political analyst Carlos Curbelo and Fernand Amandi, Democratic pollster and also MSNBC political analyst. Gentlemen, we start the day with Cafecito because there was a bet that DeSantis was not going to join. Carlos, Fernand, you are caballeros, right? You honor the bet.
I honor the bet. I also honor the fact that DeSantis would still have a political career if he listened to me, or if he'd at least had the wisdom to announce on this show, Katie, because there'd be 5 times more people watching now than that debacle on Twitter Spaces. A horrid debacle start.
Listen, let's not knock the Katie Fang viewers. So cheers to you, caballeros. Cheers. Fernando, I'm going to start with you, and let's do this. So the DeSantis campaign spent the day after that failed launch trying to woo donors right down the street in downtown Miami. This is how they're framing the campaign. They're saying it's a 2-person contest between DeSantis and Donald Trump. They said they're going to focus on positioning DeSantis as a, quote, values candidate over Trump, who's going to be bogged down by his legal troubles. But look, MAGA world has never cared about Donald Trump's legal problems. So why does DeSantis think that this is going to be a winning strategy?
I just don't think it is. I mean, he says he's going to run to the right of Trump. He's going to out-Trump Trump. It's like saying you're going to out-creep the ultimate creep in Jeffrey Epstein. You can't do that. This is Trump's party, Trump's GOP. And Trump has made it very clear. You cross the king, you better get the king, or else the king is going to go after you. And that's what's already happening. We see already Trump world piling on DeSantis, and it's why he has dropped in the polls to now in the low mid-20s. This thing could get even uglier for DeSantis in the coming days, Katie.
So a little devil's advocate here. I know DeSantis was on top of the world after his re-election in November of last year.
Courtesy
Strong
of help
polling.
from Donald Trump, though, right?
No question. But if any of us were starting a presidential campaign today and we had $100 million in the bank and we had double-digit polling, we were in second place against pretty much an incumbent, we would feel pretty happy. So look, DeSantis has a steep hill to climb, but the Trump people are worried about him. They attack him relentlessly every day. They know that he's probably the guy. If anyone can catch up to Trump, he's probably the guy that can. That's why they only talk about him. They don't talk about Tim Scott. They don't talk about Nikki Haley. They don't talk about anyone else. It's Ron DeSantis all the time for Team Trump, because they're worried about him.
But, Fernand, does it mean that it's Trump's to lose? Meaning, is that primary nom going to be his to lose? You are a pollster. This is what you do. Is it too early to be looking at these numbers? We always do, but is it a little too premature?
I don't think so, because right now Trump has what everyone in a campaign dynamic looks for to determine if that lead is insurmountable. He's got total name ID. Everybody knows who Trump is. You can't reinvent Trump. Trump
Good or
invented
bad.
himself.
Good or bad.
And he's now, in some polls, Katie, at 60%. So again, as long as Trump can maintain that lead, what DeSantis' strategy here is very simple and very clean. It's a last man standing strategy. He is hoping for Jack Smith or whatever other prosecutor is looking at Trump to throw those indictments down, put Trump in a situation where legally he just can no longer continue in this race, and all of a sudden, hey, be the last front runner there with all of his millions of dollars and then try and make a stranglehold on that nomination. But as long as Donald Trump is in this to win this, DeSantis has no chance, in my judgment.
I will tragically remind my viewers that you can run for president of the United States having been indicted and convicted.
That's right.
I mean, maybe from prison, it makes it a little hard to do. But, Carlos, let's talk about something, because you are former Congressman Carlos Curbelo from the state of Florida. You've run campaigns. This new NBC News reporting really alarms me, and it upsets me. The DeSantis administration, not the campaigners, right, the staffers on the campaign, the DeSantis administration is using employees, people that work for before that administration to actually text donors, telling them to be a part of a bundling campaign to raise money. What type of ethical concerns would you have if you heard this was going on?
Well, whether it's legal or not remains to be seen, but it's definitely not a good look. And Katie, it's further evidence of how politicized everything has become. Before, agency heads were typically, career people who were just there to make sure the government functions well, make sure people can get whatever they need from the government, and now they've basically become agents of political campaigns. So I'm sure someone will file an ethics complaint if they haven't already, and this will all be looked into, but it's certainly not a good look.
But Fernand, the irony doesn't escape me, let alone the hypocrisy. DeSantis bemoaning the fact that there's been a weaponization of the DOJ, FBI, CIA by the Biden administration. He's telling his supporters that when he gets into office, one of the first things he's going to do is kick out Chris Wray, and he's going to go after and make sure that those weapons of politicization don't exist. But isn't that exactly what he's doing by trying to use his own administration to raise money for his campaign?
Katie, hypocrisy and shamelessness, those are words that don't apply to Ron DeSantis or the Republican Party today. They laugh at the fact that any of us try to point out that duplicity because they are a by any means necessary party. What has happened to the GOP, sadly, not the GOP of Carlos Curbelo, who I think still represents that traditional Republican Party, to the extent that it's left, that party has left Carlos Curbelo, sadly. What is now in place is the MAGA party, where it's by any means necessary. If we break the law, if we have to be hypocritical, as long as we gain power and hold on to power at whatever cost, that's what they and their voters are behind. That's why they will excuse any fault, overlook any hypocrisy.
Quickly, Carlos, I got a minute. We have DeSantis signing a law letting him run for president of the United States and still remain in office as the governor. But our state, our great state of Florida, isn't doing so well under his tenure. Does that actually come back to bite him in the butt?
Well, that law has been changed I don't know how many times. They keep going back and forth. Back when Charlie Crist was a Republican governor, that law was modified so that he could potentially run for vice president with John McCain. Remember that? That seems like 100 years ago.
And
but look, I think, it depends your perspective. Economically, Florida is doing well. On a lot of these social issues, a lot of people think, and it's pretty clear when Donald Trump is attacking Ron DeSantis on abortion, on a lot of these social issues, it's clear that Florida is in a different place and maybe isn't as welcoming a place as the Chamber of Commerce ads make it seem. But, I think DeSantis is going to focus on his economic record. He's going to talk a lot about the pandemic. He believes he won the pandemic, and certainly Donald Trump has some concerns about DeSantis's pandemic record versus his in a Republican primary. So I think you can expect Ron DeSantis to focus a lot on the economy, on jobs, on how much influx the state has received new residents, new capital. That's what he's going to use to kind of deflect attention from some of these other issues that will show that he's out of the mainstream.